Mom, what's this? I held up the envelope with a woman's handwriting on it. Dad's handwriting was beneath it. Keep safe. Love always. My mom looked over from the doorway. I don't know, honey. What is it? I pulled out the photos inside. My stomach dropped. My name's Amelia Wright, and I'm 27 years old. The day I found out my dad had been living a double life, I was kneeling on the hardwood floor of his home office, surrounded by cardboard boxes and the smell of old paper. Dad had passed 5 weeks earlier. Heart attack. Quick and brutal. One moment he was complaining about the lawnmower not starting. The next, he was gone. Mom and I were still moving through the house like ghosts, unable to believe the silence was permanent. Dad was supposed to be the steady one, the guy who made pancakes every Saturday morning, who never missed one of my track meets in high school, who drove 8 hours to help me move into my first apartment after college. He worked in sales his whole life, traveled a lot for work, but he always called, always came home. Or so I thought. I'd come back to help Mom sort through his things. She'd asked me to find the life insurance paperwork. We needed it to settle the estate. The documents were supposed to be in his desk, in the locked bottom drawer. I'd found the key taped under his keyboard, typical Dad, always hiding things in obvious places. I opened the drawer expecting folders and tax returns. Instead, I found a wooden box tucked in the back. Inside were photos, dozens of them. A woman with dark curly hair and a wide smile. 2 kids, a boy who looked about 11, a girl maybe 9. And in every single photo, my father. At birthday parties with candles and cake. Christmas mornings with presents scattered on a living room floor I'd never seen. A beach vacation with the 4 of them building sandcastles. The timestamps went back over a decade. Subscribe if you've ever had the ground ripped out from under you, if someone you trusted turned out to be a stranger. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. I promise you, this community gets it. We've all been shattered by people we loved. I sat there staring at one photo in particular. It showed my dad holding the little girl on his shoulders at some kind of fair. She was eating cotton candy, grinning down at him. He was looking up at her with this expression of pure joy. The date stamp said, September 2021. September 2021, I'd been living 2 hours away, working my first real job out of college. Dad had driven down that month to take me to dinner for my birthday. We'd gone to that Italian place I loved. He'd given me a card with $200 in it and told me he was proud of me. The next day, apparently, he'd gone to a fair with a completely different family. I felt like I was going to be sick. I dug deeper into the drawer and found an accordion folder stuffed with printed emails. I opened it with shaking hands. The emails went back 15 years. 15 years of messages between Dad and a woman named Rachel Palmer. I miss you so much. Can't wait for this weekend. The kids keep asking when you're coming back. Lily drew you another picture. I know this is hard, but we'll figure it out. I love you. And from my dad. I hate being away from you. This isn't fair to any of us. Tell Ethan I'm proud of him for making the team. I'll be there for his first game. Someday we won't have to do this anymore. I promise. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the entire box against the wall. Instead, I carefully put everything back, closed the drawer, and walked downstairs on legs that didn't feel like mine. Mom was in the kitchen, organizing sympathy casseroles in the fridge. She'd lost weight since Dad died. Her wedding ring kept slipping around on her finger. Any luck finding the policy? She asked without turning around. I opened my mouth. The words stuck in my throat. How do you destroy your mother's entire understanding of her marriage? How do you tell her that the man she'd been with for 34 years had been lying to her face for over a decade? Amelia? Still looking, I managed. Lots of paperwork up there. She nodded. Take your time, sweetheart. I'm just going to lie down for a bit. I watched her walk slowly toward the bedroom and felt like the worst daughter in the world for not telling her. But I couldn't. Not yet. Not until I understood what I was looking at. I went back to my apartment that night and opened my laptop. My hands were still shaking as I typed Rachel Palmer Ashford into Facebook. Her profile came up immediately. Public settings, no privacy controls. I scrolled through years of her life, photos of her kids, Ethan and Lily Palmer, at soccer games, school plays, family dinners. Posts about her job as a dental hygienist at a clinic in Ashford, about 2.5 hours from where I grew up. Birthday tributes to her children, pictures of her garden, her book club, her morning coffee, and scattered throughout, maybe once every couple of months, photos that included my father. Date night with this amazing man, one caption read from 8 months ago. The photo showed them at a restaurant, Dad's arm around her shoulders, both of them smiling. 47 people had liked it. Another post from 2 years ago. Grateful for everyone who makes our little family work, even when it's complicated. What the hell did that mean? Did she know about us? Did she know Dad was married? Or had he lied to her too? I looked at photos of Ethan and Lily and did the math in my head. Ethan looked about 11 now, which meant he was born when I was 16. Right around the time Dad had been helping me study for my driver's test, when he'd taught me to parallel park in an empty lot on Sunday afternoons. He'd been building a whole other life while teaching me how to drive. I slammed my laptop shut and cried, until my head pounded. The next morning, I called in sick to work. Then I got in my car and drove to Ashford. I don't know what I was planning to do. I just needed to see it with my own eyes. Needed to confirm this was real and not some nightmare I was going to wake up from. I found her house using the address on Dad's emails, a modest 2-story on a quiet street with a maple tree in the front yard. There was a trampoline in the back, a minivan in the driveway, a wreath on the front door that said, "Welcome, friends," in cheerful letters. I parked across the street and waited. After about 20 minutes, the front door opened. Rachel came out first. She was prettier in person, mid-40s maybe, with an easy smile as she called back into the house. "Come on, guys, we're gonna be late." The kids tumbled out after her. The boy, Ethan, was tall for his age, lanky, wearing a basketball jersey. The girl, Lily, was smaller, darker hair like her mom's, carrying a backpack covered in patches. They looked happy. Normal. Like a family in a commercial. They got into the minivan and drove off. I followed at a distance, feeling crazy and desperate and completely unmoored from reality. They went to a park where a youth basketball league was setting up. Rachel unloaded a folding chair and a cooler. She sat up on the sideline next to other parents. When Ethan's game started, she cheered louder than anyone. I watched from my car in the parking lot, watched her take photos of him making a basket, watched her offer orange slices at halftime, watched Lily do cartwheels on the grass while her mom clapped. It was exactly what Dad used to do for me. Saturday mornings at the track. Him in the bleachers with his terrible coffee in a travel mug, shouting encouragement every time I rounded the curve. He'd given them the same thing he gave me, which meant he'd cut himself in half for 15 years, and none of us had known. Or maybe Rachel had known. Maybe she was fine with it. Maybe she thought we were the secret, and she was the real family. I drove home with tears streaming down my face, barely able to see the road. I didn't tell Mom. Not that week. Not the week after. Every time I thought about saying something, I looked at her grief-stricken face and couldn't do it. She was already shattered. How could I break her further? But 3 weeks after I found the photos, I didn't have to tell her. Because Rachel showed up and did it for me. I was at work when Mom called. I was working as a paralegal at a small nonprofit law clinic, helping low-income families with housing disputes while saving money for law school. I'd been reviewing a rental agreement when my phone rang. "Amelia, you need to come home right now." Mom's voice was shaking so badly I almost didn't recognize it. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" "Just come, please." I told my boss I had an emergency and drove to my parents' house going 20 over the speed limit the whole way. When I walked in, Mom was sitting at the dining room table. There was a woman sitting across from her. Rachel. She looked up when I entered. Her eyes were red and swollen. She'd been crying. "You must be Amelia," she said softly. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. Mom's face was blank, completely empty, like someone had erased her from the inside out. "This is Rachel Palmer," Mom said. Her voice was flat, mechanical. "She came to pay her respects. She just found out about your father's passing." My heart was hammering so hard I thought I might pass out. "I'm so sorry for just showing up like this," Rachel said. Her hands were twisting a tissue in her lap. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know about any of this until 2 days ago." "Know about what?" My voice came out barely above a whisper. Rachel looked at Mom, then back at me. "That he was still married," she said. "That he had a family here. He told me he was divorced. That his ex-wife lived in another state and you two weren't in contact. I thought..." Her voice broke. "We were engaged. He proposed to me 6 months ago." The room tilted. Mom made a sound like a wounded animal. "Engaged," I repeated numbly. Rachel held up her left hand. There was a diamond ring. Small, but definitely an engagement ring. "He said we'd get married after the holidays," Rachel continued, tears spilling down her cheeks. "That he wanted to do it right this time." I had no idea he was lying. I found some paperwork when I was going through his things. He kept a storage unit that I didn't know about. There was a deed to this house. Your mother's name was on it. I Googled her and found the obituary and I... "Get out," Mom whispered. Rachel froze. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know." "Get out of my house!" Mom's scream shook the walls. I'd never heard her yell like that in my entire life. Rachel stood up so fast her chair fell backward. "I have 2 children," she said, her voice desperate. "They loved him. He was their father. They're grieving too. I just thought you should know they exist." "I don't care." Mom was on her feet now, shaking. "I don't care about you or your children. He was my husband. This is my house. Get out." Rachel grabbed her purse and ran. The front door slammed so hard a picture fell off the wall. And then Mom collapsed. I caught her before she hit the floor. She was sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe. Deep, horrible sounds that came from somewhere I'd never heard before. I held her on the dining room floor while she fell apart. When she finally went quiet, she pulled back and looked at me with eyes that were already bruising from crying. "Did you know?" she asked. I couldn't lie to her. "I found photos in his desk," I admitted. "A few weeks ago. I didn't know how to tell you." She nodded slowly. Then she stood up, walked into the kitchen, and poured herself a glass of wine. It was 10 in the morning. She drank half of it in one swallow. "We need to figure out what else he was hiding," she said. Her voice was different now. Hard. Cold. "Mom." "No." She set the glass down with a sharp click. "He lied to me for 15 years, Amelia. 15 years. I need to know everything. I need to know what else he took from me." What they didn't know, what Dad had never bothered to find out, was that I'd spent the last 3 years working my way through a paralegal certification while applying to law schools. I'd been interning at a family law clinic. I knew how to pull financial records. I knew what signs to look for when someone was hiding assets. And I was about to rip apart every lie my father had ever told. The first thing I did was get access to all of Dad's financial accounts. Mom gave me permission to access everything: bank statements, credit card records, investment portfolios, his email accounts. It took me 4 days to piece together the full picture. And it was so much worse than I'd imagined. Dad had been running 2 completely separate financial lives. He had the joint checking account with Mom. That one looked normal. Mortgage payments, utilities, groceries, everything a married couple would have. But he also had a second checking account that Mom had never known about. It was linked to an LLC he'd created 12 years ago, Green Consulting Services. The LLC had its own tax ID number, its own business checking account, and he'd been funneling money into it for over a decade. I traced every transaction, small transfers mostly, 500 here, 800 there, sometimes 1,000, just enough to slip under the radar to not trigger any red flags. Over 12 years, he'd diverted over $220,000, money that should have been in their retirement account. Money Mom didn't know existed. I found rent payments to a landlord in Ashford, utility bills for an address that matched Rachel's house, tuition payments to a private school, grocery store charges, gas stations, everything you'd need to support a second household. He'd been financing 2 families for over a decade. "Mom," I said one evening, showing her the spreadsheets I'd created. "We need to talk about money." She looked up from the book she'd been staring at for the past hour without turning a single page. "How bad is it?" she asked. "How are you doing financially right now?" She sighed. "Tight. The life insurance will help, but his pension was smaller than we thought." I was looking at selling the house, maybe moving into something smaller. My jaw clenched. "Don't do anything yet," I said. "I found something." I showed her everything: the hidden account, the LLC, the diverted funds. She went completely white. $200,000, she whispered. $223,000, I said. Plus, whatever interest it should have earned if it had been properly invested. Her hands started shaking. "Where is it now?" "Some of it's still in the LLC account. The rest went to rent, bills, tuition. He spent it supporting them. That was our retirement," Mom said. Her voice cracked. "We were supposed to travel. I wanted to see Italy. He kept saying we needed to wait a few more years, save a little more. And the whole time?" She couldn't finish. I reached across and took her hand. "I'm going to fix this," I said. "How?" "I'm going to call my boss." Ellen Peterson ran the nonprofit law clinic where I worked. But before she'd gone into nonprofit work, she'd been a family law attorney for 20 years. She'd seen every kind of betrayal there was. I called her that night and explained everything. "I need help," I said, "and I need to know if what I'm thinking is even legal." She listened to the whole story without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Let me make some calls. I know someone who specializes in estate law. Can you meet tomorrow?" "Yes." The next day, I was sitting in Ellen's office with an estate attorney named David Morrison. He was in his 60s, with sharp eyes and a reputation for being ruthless when he needed to be. "Your father's will leaves everything to your mother," David said, looking over the documents I'd brought. "Standard stuff. But here's the problem. If he made financial promises to Rachel Palmer, if he was acting as a father figure to her children and supporting them, she could potentially make a claim against the estate for continued support." Mom's face went pale. "Even though he lied to her?" "Family court doesn't care much about morality," David said. "It cares about financial dependence. If he was supporting those kids, if they relied on him, a judge might rule they're entitled to something." "That's insane," I said. "Maybe, but it's the law." David leaned back in his chair. "However, there's another angle here. The money your father diverted into that LLC, That was marital property. He converted it without your mother's knowledge or consent. In legal terms, that's called fraudulent conveyance. We can petition to have those funds returned to the estate as stolen marital assets. And if Rachel tries to make a claim, we countersue for every penny he spent on her. I leaned forward. How fast can you file? I can have the paperwork ready by tomorrow. Do it. Within a week, David had filed an emergency petition to freeze Dad's LLC accounts and reclaim the funds as fraudulently converted marital property. Rachel's attorney, she'd hired one, responded within 48 hours. They wanted a meeting. We agreed to meet at David's office the following Friday. Rachel showed up with a lawyer who wore a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She looked smaller than I remembered. Scared. Good, I thought viciously. You should be scared. My client isn't here to cause problems, her attorney began. He had the kind of smooth voice that made me immediately distrust him. But Mr. Green supported her and her children for over a decade. He made promises. Your client was party to an affair built on deception. David cut him off. Mr. Green systematically defrauded his legal wife of over $200,000 in marital assets to fund a second household. We have complete documentation. Every transfer, every payment going back 12 years. My client didn't know he was married. That's irrelevant to the fraud, David said. The money was stolen from Mrs. Wright. We're reclaiming it. If Ms. Palmer contests, we'll file a civil suit and alert the IRS to the LLC irregularities. I'm quite certain they'll be interested in whether taxes were properly paid on that income. Rachel's lawyer's face tightened. I spoke up for the first time. Did he tell you about me? I asked Rachel directly. She looked at me, shook her head slightly. He said you were estranged, that you hadn't spoken in years. He taught me to ride a bike, I said quietly. Helped me with my homework every night through high school. Drove 8 hours to help me move into my apartment. We had dinner together the week before he died. We watched Jeopardy and ate takeout Chinese food. Her face crumpled. He told me he was visiting a client, she whispered. I'm sorry your kids lost someone they loved, I continued. I really am. But he stole from my mother to build your life. He lied to all of us. And I'm not going to let you take anything else from her. Rachel was crying now, silent tears running down her face. Her lawyer put a hand on her arm. We'll need time to consider our options. You have 48 hours, David said. After that, we file everything, and this becomes very public and very expensive for your client. The meeting ended. Rachel didn't look at me as she left. I thought I'd feel triumphant, powerful. Instead, I just felt tired. Rachel's lawyer called the next afternoon. They agreed to return all accessible funds from the LLC and drop any claim to the estate. In exchange, we wouldn't pursue further legal action or report the tax irregularities. David drew up the settlement agreement. Rachel signed it 3 days later. We recovered $142,000. The rest had already been spent over the years. When the check cleared, Mom cried for the first time since the confrontation, but these weren't grief tears. They were relief. I can pay off the mortgage, she said, staring at the bank statement. I can keep the house. She looked at me with something like wonder in her eyes. You saved me, she said. I hugged her tight. We saved each other. But it still wasn't over. A week later, I got a message on Facebook from someone I didn't know. Ethan Palmer, my half-brother. My mom told me you're my half-sister. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. I didn't know he had another family. He was a good dad to us. I thought he loved us. I stared at that message for a long time. Kid hadn't asked for any of this. Neither had his sister. They were just children who'd lost someone they loved. And now they were learning it had all been built on lies. Just like me. I wrote back, he did love you. He just loved a lot of people in broken ways, and none of us got the truth. I'm sorry you're going through this. None of it is your fault. Take care of your mom and your sister. He replied with a heart emoji. I closed the app and haven't opened that message thread since. Mom's doing better now. She started seeing a therapist twice a week, joined a book club at the library. She's planning a trip to Italy next spring, the trip she and Dad were supposed to take for their 35th anniversary. She's going with 2 friends from her book club instead. She doesn't talk about Dad much anymore. When she does, there's a distance in her voice. Like he's someone she used to know a long time ago, in a different life. As for me, I got into law school. Start next month. And I'm done looking for closure in people who never had the courage to be honest. Some betrayals don't come with neat endings. You don't get all the answers. You don't get apologies from people who are already gone. You just learn to carry it differently. Learn that the person you loved and the person who lied can somehow be the same person, and you have to make peace with that contradiction. I still have questions I'll never get answered. But I have my mom. I have my future. And I have the knowledge that when everything fell apart, I was strong enough to put some of it back together. That has to be enough. If you've ever had to rebuild your life after someone you loved turned out to be someone you never really knew, hit subscribe. Tell me your story in the comments, where you're watching from, what you survived, how you're putting the pieces back together. This community is built on truth and survival. Your voice matters here. I read every single one, and I promise you're not alone in this.